Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
I think lots of people would like to hear this, and it's the question that I ask politicians when they come to my door and knock. What are the first three issues you would address if you were the Prime Minister of this country?
Well, I said the first thing I would cut is Theresa Tam if I was elected. So I'd fire Theresa Tam. But listen, there's a lot of things that we have to address. I think that we need less Ottawa and more province because, the type of things that Alberta has been able to do over the years in relation to, some of the other provinces is very remarkable. And they've done that with their own provincial autonomy. So I believe in provincial autonomy. I believe that we need less Ottawa, more provinces. And frankly, we also need to make sure that Canada is free from international entanglements, whether that's, communist China, the UN, World Health Organization. So we need to make sure that we're autonomous nationally and that provinces have autonomy as well.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and I'm inviting you to check out this interview that I did with Derek Sloan. This is the interview in its full form, unedited, that we recorded right here in Airdrie, Alberta. So I'm here with Derek Sloan, probably about 300 people here tonight, lots of good questions, an impassioned speech with a large crowd. We're hoping that you might answer a few questions. I wanted to first off ask, you mentioned about voting and vote splitting, that perhaps it's time for an era of principled voting versus the sort of strategic mentality that we've had maybe in past years that have led to compromised governments. But how do we strike a balance between pragmatic decision-making and principled voting?
Well, right now we live in a time in Canada where 6 out of 10 Canadians are dissatisfied with every single political party, and that's a poll that I read in the National Post. We also are living in a time right now where I have asked thousands of Albertans in person if they think that Aaron O'Toole has a chance of winning. Only one out of those thousands said that he might have a slim chance. So we live in a unique time where we have complete silence in opposition ranks. It's not like the Conservatives are neck and neck. If they're neck and neck, maybe a split the vote argument comes into play. They're many points behind. Right now, I'm hoping there'll be good options in every riding for Canadians to choose. Now is the time to do it.
And perhaps then if I could push a little bit back on principle, sure. As Canadians, it seems that we've been willing to compromise. Maybe if you could talk on principle why we should be voting what we believe, not just based on calculated decisions.
Yeah, so listen, the vote is one of the freedoms that we have in this country. We should use our vote and not waste it. And, we've gotten, halfway to hell, so to speak, in terms of, always holding our nose and voting. We need to make sure that our vote counts and that we get political parties to really work hard for our vote. And when Alberta votes 80+% Conservative, Aaron O'Toole turns around and says, I can afford to lose some votes in Alberta. That is not worthy of your vote. You need to vote for someone who actually will stand up for your values.
Particularly in Alberta, that is something of a sore spot. Lots of people thought in Jason Kenney that they had found the guy who would finally do right by Albertans. For many, that has not been the situation. How can people trust you when we've seen politician after politician collapse over time?
Well, it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what I've done. And so people have seen, I almost got thrown out of the party several times. They finally succeeded. I've continued on. I have 6 court summons on my desk at home. So people can take my words at face value if they like, or they can look at my past history. But I'm not here to say believe in me because of what I've said. I'm saying believe in me from what I've done.
We had someone asking about a potential constitution for the True North Party, and you said you wanted to take what some might call a grassroots approach, garner input from people. Very often that's how we fall into the big tent conversation, and then all those principles, we surrender them one by one. How is the True North Party going to be different in adhering to principles?
Some of the reasons why the Conservative Party has sort of faltered is because they're not following their own constitution. So, for example, the constituents, the members in my riding elected me, but then my membership and my nomination status was stripped from our riding, even though people in my riding still want me to be there. So if they actually had a true grassroots status where local people could select someone they wanted, a lot of these issues wouldn't have happened. And I can give you many other examples, but really the issue is not that grassroots is dangerous, it's that the parties don't allow it really anyways.
One of the patterns that we have seen in conservative politics, provincially and federally, is that once a party gains power or they feel they're close to power, they start to look at polls and they're like, if we surrender this issue, we surrender that issue, we can gain that ground. How are you going to enforce commitment to a principled stance when, let's say, other members in the party are saying, let's commit to this, let's commit to that to win these few people over?
Well, you know what? I always believe that the idea that we have to follow the polls is misguided. Everybody can use polls, but you also have to realize that if you're a good leader, you can also lead the polls. So polling can tell you where you're at, but a good leader decides where he wants to go. He doesn't just look at the average Canadian and say, what's the lowest common denominator that I can sort of throw out there? No, a good leader says, where do I want to go? And they invite people to come with them.
Now, I think lots of people would like to hear this, and it's the question that I ask politicians when they come to my door and knock. What are the first three issues you would address if you were the Prime Minister of this country?
Well, I said the first thing I would cut is Theresa Tam if I was elected. So I'd fire Theresa Tam. But listen, there's a lot of things that we have to address. I think that we need less Ottawa and more province because, the type of things that Alberta has been able to do over the years in relation to, some of the other provinces is very remarkable. And they've done that with their own provincial autonomy. So I believe in provincial autonomy. I believe that we need less Ottawa, more provinces. And frankly, we also need to make sure that Canada is free from international entanglements, whether that's, communist China, the UN, World Health Organization. So we need to make sure that we're autonomous nationally and that provinces have autonomy as well.
Social conservatives have generally been ostracized by parties. They make up likely a significant portion of the population, and they simply have no place to go. Will social conservatives finally have a home in the True North Party?
Social conservatives are welcome in my party, and frankly, I believe they're the majority of Canadians when you look at basic value propositions across coast to coast. So these are the kind of things we're going to be fighting for in a principled and fair manner, and I welcome social conservatives in my party.
And what would those fundamental principles be that you would say, this is so important that we will commit to this as a party?
Well, listen, our party will be pro-life. Okay, now, exactly the policies that we have. There's 1,000 different arguments about what the best ways to support families and things like this are. So that's going to be a conversation with our members and with our candidates. But we're going to have in mind, listen, life is valuable. It's worth protecting. It's not going to be an either or kind of thing. So we're going to be pro-life. We're going to stand for, traditional values in a way that fits in the 21st century. We're, going to be smart about it. But we're going to stand for things like this. We're going to stand for, parental authority, parental autonomy in terms of raising their kids and life. So these are some basic issues I think that resonate with Canadians coast to coast.
And finally, you talked about not trying to make small little steps and little bits of progress, but fighting and campaigning to actually win.
Yes.
Can the True North Party of Canada win?
So let me put it this way. There is room right now for a movement to capture the hearts and minds of Canadians. So many people are disillusioned. I believe this party can do it. But the fact is that if somebody does this right, they can win. Now, there are election calls and this kind of thing. So if we can get a bit of a runway, I know we can do really well. But no matter what happens, we're going to be fighting, whether it's with a small nucleus of people or a larger group of people. But every single thing we do is going to be to win. It's not going to be to gradually increase our count. So if we're running only a few candidates, it will be that those candidates can win. If we're running many, it will be that they can win. And that's going to be everything we do is going to be geared towards that objective.
And finally, perhaps a message to Canadians who might be on the fence. What would you say to encourage them to take a look, to consider, to listen to your message?
Sure. The legacy parties in this country have failed us. The opposition has failed us. They're all corrupt. None of them allow their MPs to represent their constituents properly. This will be a party that sticks to true grassroots principles, puts Canadians first at all times. I encourage you to keep your eyes and ears open and go to my website, dereksloan.ca.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's nice to have a politician who's willing to stand there and answer questions instead of scurrying away and hiding behind security. So Derek Sloan, thanks for taking some time to talk to me. And everyone, thanks for checking out this interview. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Guys, we don't take big chunks of your taxes to pay for this. We run independently, and that can get tough. Today, we're just out in Airdrie. Sometimes we're going off to far off locations. The mileage, the flights, all that stuff can add up. If you are willing to help with some of those costs to help us keep bringing you the other side of the story, go to rebelfieldreports.com.